Hello and welcome to Organic Matters, the podcast brought to you by the Irish Organic Association. We're here in Cork in front of a cattle shed, and I think these cows have the best view in Ireland, potentially. The farmer Conor Sheahan is here with me. I don't know, Conor, was this why the shed was built here? Just to give the cows this view, is it?
Yeah, because everybody seems to be looking over at us. But
and what are the cows looking at? Where are we in the world?
We're in Ballintona, and right across the way now is Clahula, the National School, and Clahula Beg itself. And down here to the left is Kilmedia. This was all one big farm before it was owned by the Creedons, and the man back in the 1890s or something, he was Sean Robardo reared on. He was given the land when the land was divided up after Creedon is the landlord, and he was a very historical man. He was worked for the Land League, and there was a bomb thrown into the landlords outside Macroom. And at the time they wanted to catch the fellow who owned this farm because he was doing a lot of... he was in jail for a few times, and he was a rowdy bit of a fella, but he was always thinking outside the box and wasn't afraid to do it. So he was caught anyway, and he was sentenced to jail, and he was sentenced 5 years. And the next thing, he moved from here. My grandfather bought it in 1938, and when my father and my aunt was born in the house here. The house is actually knocked. We knocked it in 2012 because the roof was going to blow off and blow up in the old up the house I have. I'm sorry I knocked it now, but sure, that's the way things go. And now we're here inside. It's gone now from my grandfather's from the Bard's farm to my grandfather's farm to my father's farm and to now Finno farm. That's where we are now.
Very nice. And are you farming here by yourself, or is there a crowd around?
I'm here on my own. My father was active enough there, but he's 84 now, and that's a workman unit that you never realise that you have it until they start getting old, and on top of all that, you don't realise that you actually start getting old yourself. And you'll be buying all this machinery, you'll be saying, if you get this machine now, it'll make life much easier. And I had all those machines, I had the best of gear, but I found that making life easier, I had to work extra hard to have all these things I had. You know, we were the first of the area, to have a robot over there for feeding the calves back in 2006. It was a fantastic machine and everything, but I found after my year of rearing the calf, I could actually buy the weanling cheaper at the end of the year. All my time drying feed to them, dosing with deaths and pneumonias and scours and going to the marts and having numbers and all this kind of stuff. I had some fantastic stuff, but I wasn't paid for it at the end of the year. And I made up my sums. I goes, Gilly Mac, this is a fantastic machine, but I'm not getting paid for my time. I can go out and buy the same animal a year later for probably a lot less.
So tell me about the transition of the farm, because you mentioned a dairy parlour before we started as well. So what did it start off with? What's the evolution?
My father was big into sheep. We had only had a small number of cows back in 1982, and there was only about 20 or 30 cows being milked here. My father loved sheep because we have a lot of farms in different areas. Yeah. And it's just feasible. There was a lot of ground here now. Everything we have there has all been reclaimed. A lot of money put into it. When I was in school, all my friends had new tractors, and I come home and say, Dad, we've got no new tractor. He goes, don't mind them, he says, they've got no land. So my father was investing the money, and my mother were there putting the money into all the ground all the time. So when I got older, I realised that all the boys' tractors were rotten, but I had all this land. So you don't realise what your parents are building up for you until you come to the age of saying, look what I'm going to be going into.
And what did he build it up to? How many?
Well, when I came back farming, we put up the new milking parlour there in 1994, and we increased up to 40 cows. And of course, in the last 15 years, we increased up to 90, and we're heading for 100. And because we had another farm, we didn't have to milk all the cows. We didn't have to cut all the silage here, so I could have easily milked 80 cows here, no problem, and bringing the silage from somewhere else. We also kept all the calves. We kept all the up to year and a halves. We had about 600 sheep as well at the time. Wow. And we ran another 20 or 30 sucklers just for the crack on the side. Yeah. But
just for the crack, yeah.
Just for the crack, yeah. It was very hard to get labour, and fellas that would start off with you, they'd be finding their feet when they'd be young, and next thing they'd go home farming, and then they wouldn't have time to come and help you because their father's getting old and they have to stay more at home, they have more responsibilities. So I found it harder to get labour. So in 2018, I fell inside there in the yard, and I lost my eyesight. And what happened was it was dehydration, pressure and stress. Back in 2018, the snow was falling, there was scrapers stuck, there was fellas drawing silage left, right and centre.
It was the beast from the east.
It was the beast from the east at the time, yeah. And so the vet was inside in the yard, and I said I couldn't see him. And he says, there's something wrong with you. And next thing my head opened, I got a massive headache, and I barely made it down to the house. So the ambulance came, and I was above in hospital anyway at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, getting my brain scanned and everything, and I had to go down to get a check for my brain bleed. There was 100 cows calved here, there was another 100 calves over there, scraper stuck, cows calving, no one to come, no one to help. And the hospital rang Lavinia, goes, Conor, or Lavinia, where's Conor? We're looking for him here. He was in the wheelchair there a minute ago. I was in the taxi and she looked up the yard, the whole place was lit up. I was back to where I was. So I said to her, that's it now, I said. Something's got to go. So I got rid of the cows. Got rid of all the cows at 2018 in 3 lots.
That's a tough decision.
You shouldn't be doing that, no. But anyway, yeah. That happened in 2018, and along with 2018 our house went on fire. So it was a good decision in one way. So I took the year off. I cleared my bills, and of course there was vultures hanging around the place wanting to buy this and wanting to buy that. They thought I was going under or something like that, and fellas saying, oh, your man got rid of the cows. And do you know, it was one of the best things I ever did, because I was rearing Wagyu for 20 years as well as everything else. And back in 2004, I said that I wanted to have the most expensive beef in the world, and I googled it, and that's I got into it. I got him in embryos, and I put him into, we had a purebred Angus herd here. We put him into the purebred Anguses, and I've been rearing them for about 18 or 19 years now, until about a year and a half ago. Noel Clancy from Ireland's Farmers rang me up, and he said that I heard you're doing Wagyu. I'd like to come down, talk to you about your enterprise. I said I'd be mad to talk about it. And I went on it, and I spent a week in it, and we got a load of followers onto Ireland's Farmers. Then the phone calls started coming in for Wagyu beef, and the 21st of November we made up the name Finno Farm, because the River Finno goes through one of our fields there. It started off on Twitter, because I wasn't really up on social media. I was just looking through Facebook. I didn't really know much about it, but Twitter opened up that I had no bother in front of a camera, and if I could do that, I could actually sell my product online to people. And it started off with sum up, and people ring you, you'd send on the car details, and for the first time ever, that the money was actually inside my account before I actually packed the meat. So the first time ever I was actually a price giver rather than a price taker. I'd also sold Wagyu before to other people, and I have reared the animals for so long. I wasn't actually getting paid for the amount of time and effort that you put into rearing Wagyu.
And Wagyu, for people who don't know or have never heard of it, explain what it is.
Wagyu itself is the Japanese for black cow, and it originates in Japan, around the Hokkaido Islands in the north of Japan. And a long time ago, the Americans went to Japan, and they tasted this meat, and they said that this was fantastic altogether, and didn't realise what was causing it. So the Japanese at the time were making this drink called sake, and the stuff that was left over the sake was kind of like a brewery mash, and they were feeding it to the Wagyu. And I presume the Japanese and the cows, they were all drunk in the back because they all had a small amount of cows. So they were like the boys here in Ireland, I presume, in long ago. They were making this poteen, giving the waste to the cattle, and they were massaging the cattle, and it was supposed to bring this marbling. But as genetics and everything went by, they found what it was at 28 months, the genes in the animal start dispersing the fat through the meat itself. And it's a different type meat. It's a very low cholesterol meat, a high protein meat, and it melts at room temperature compared to normal beef, but it takes an awful lot longer to rear it. And I think myself, everything is rushed today. Everybody, we were told to have everything within 2 years, have bulls within 16 months. Everything is force fed, where I've given.
We'll walk up towards the cow. So yeah. So how many do we have here in front of us?
This is for what you actually see here now. These are in case my Wagyu never sold.
Okay.
This is my suckler herd.
Okay.
And these are my Angus cows that I'd run with an Angus bull, and these are the bread and butter if I never sell a box, because if you have all your eggs in one basket, you're in trouble. But if you can see inside there now, there's a Wagyu there now. He's on his bush there now. He's 4.5 years old, that fella. And it's not easy to do what I'm doing, holding animals for so long.
Because usually, typically, for people who don't listen, because I know we have some non-farmers who are listening, and they come up to me and say they love the podcast and they love hearing directly from farmers about what's going on. So usually animals are typically sent to a factory at about 30 months of age. So that's 4.5 years old. So that's much older than the 30 months. Like you said, it's not been rushed at all.
They've been running around the place here for nearly 4 years. Some of them were as old as my children at one stage. I tried to put them up the mountain as well during the summer, depending. They were up in. They stayed a lot of the time up in when the weather is actually good. They can stay up the mountain. You can see them there now belting away at the bush. They love the bush. But I find also you get a much bigger carcass, and it's better to wait that long because they're not really a big animal compared to Charlie now or Limousine for that length of time. They're 3/4 bred Wagyu now. They would be the third generation that I've bred.
I have to say though, because when I looked in, I could definitely point out the Angus's, no bother, and I was trying to see the Wagyu. The second you pointed out, it is a much shapier animal. There's a lot more room there. Like you said, a bigger carcass. It's substantial actually, isn't it?
It takes a while now. The last animal now we killed out at 340. And that was on our own barley there now. I'm running out of the damn thing now and here, but they're on that. Look, when an animal gets that old, it's very easy to put on the weight. Rather than force feeding them ration all the time, and then it goes out the other side. And then by the time you divide everything down, you really have nothing left for your animal. But the amount of time and effort I put into selling it on social media and everything like that, and the Crowleys above in Ballincollig have given me an opportunity to sell my meat, because it's not easy. You just can't. You can start off with baking cakes in the morning and apple tarts, but you just can't go away and say, hey, I'm going to go slaughtering cattle because the rules and regulations, which I think is disastrous. It's gone down the wrong. I think there's room for a mobile abattoir or somebody to start off an abattoir somewhere, and it should be synthesised. Somebody that wants to do it like myself there now, to slaughter my own cattle rather than having to be under the thumb of the bigger guys.
It's very tough.
The money that they have is frightening.
And the local abattoirs are finding it very tough. And even for us, we have geese at home that we get killed every year, just for ourselves and some friends. Harder and harder to find someone around. So local abattoirs are a serious issue. But besides that, and obviously that is an issue, is there demand there for the beef boxes, for the Wagyu?
Because I have a small amount of it, there is demand for the small amount of it. A lot of people say, oh, you're going to get bigger. No, you're flying. But if you see me on the internet and I'm advertising, that means I'm wanting to sell. If you don't see me on the social media, that means I'm doing fine. Do you know? And I'd like to be able to say, lads, 'tis gone. 'Tis all gone.
Yeah.
But I'm prepared. I put 20 years into it already, and I'm not going to stop now. And look, I have a restaurant now on board, and they've been a great help to me. They said they'd never come across anything like it.
Really?
Yeah.
That must be so nice getting that feedback.
Oh yeah.
Because like I said, doing this for 20 years, that must be brilliant.
5 chefs in front of you and say, my God, Conor, this is unbelievable.
And is it 100% grass fed? Or you mentioned barley there as well. Is it so what goes into finishing a Wagyu animal here?
They were actually out a long time. I'll show you more. They're outside, but I try and get as much grass into the fellas they're near finishing. Sometimes that yellows the fat a little bit, and that kind of turns off customers a bit because they don't know what grass-fed is. And it's fine to say grass-fed, but they're only grass-fed for a certain length of their time, and then they're on silage, which is grass in itself. People don't realise, but that silage is grass.
Yeah. And do you have a bit of tillage going on? You mentioned your barley. What do you do? Because organic meal is obviously very expensive.
Oh, that was a pain in the ass this year. We grew 15 acres now, and instead of fat cattle, I've got fat pigeons. Pigeons and pheasants, and there's some fella now running around with a gun behind her now shooting him. So I had to go and get a sign to put up no shooting by pheasants, because
they're yours.
They're my birds.
Eating your barley.
They're not
your
going to eat their genie, Mac. But in fairness, now the government are after coming up, and a lot of fellas are in the hole because of it. Look, I was very lucky because I had the land. The farm was receded because we undersowed it with grass.
Yeah.
We got probably about 3 or 4 acres out of it because a fella from Killarney came along and helped me.
Okay.
Most of it was on the ground. His neck was sore from looking out over the machine to try and get it. But I got something just to wean the weanlings that are there, and the ones that are marked blue there now, they're supposed to be going to the mark Saturday, but I forgot that I had to test them. So they'll be privately tested now next week, and they're going to Macroom Mark then next week, thank God.
And you'll get the tillage compensation scheme for what?
And the tillage compensation, the government have to come on and saying, well, fuck it, they were incentivised to pay us for it anyway, but they incentivised to grow it, but we got nothing out of it. So I wasn't in a bad position, but there's other fellas out there, it's their livelihood. Yeah. I'm only running a small operation, so that's the one good thing. Like, I could have had a whole load of cattle here depending on it, and there's not much of a difference in the price of organic cattle at the moment to be feeding that kind of ration at the moment, like.
Organic, you mentioned it there. When did you become organic? Why did you want to become organic?
Well, since we stopped in 2018 spreading fertiliser and spraying and everything, just like this, I had the place annihilated with docks. There was no docks left before I started organics, to be fair now. Because I was intensive. I was intensive to a certain degree. But a lot of it was the amount of stock I had, the amount of slurry I was putting out, the more infrastructure I had to put in to cope with the amount of slurry that I had. And every time I put up a slatted unit, I was going to fill it again. And that's the problem. Where do you stop? And where do you start making money in farming? And you'll find that you'll have all your life spent farming and you'll actually have nothing for yourself. You'll probably be in the OD again, and all you'll have is a load of assets around the place and nothing again for yourself, relying on the pension. And I said, it's about time for me to stop and sit back and see the money that myself, the father, has put into the farm, and the mother in the last couple of years. And we've got the infrastructure, the land is there, and people should just work on what land that they have and not try and push it that much, because you're not paying for it, you have it. So it's like having a slave. You want to get more out of them by driving them more, and when you drive your land more, it's not good for the environment, it's not good for yourself, and it's not good for the animal. So if you work your farm and what it's able to run comfortably without you stressing over having to get feed, like our farm has changed here since we went to organics, there's no doubt about it. I see a lot of it. We used to be trumping cows back and forth to paddocks, and the soil never got a chance to get a good skin, as we'd call it in farming. But I have bullocks out there now, and there's raining on top of them, and the ground is it can take a lot much, because it's not pounded all the time. Suckler cows are fine. They say it is for an old man that can just have the cow calf and just tips away. But the organics, if you're a small farmer and you have a small job, it's just well worth looking at organics, because you're not at home to be doing all the topping, you're not there to doing the spraying, you want to have time with your family as well. And if you have an off-farm job as well, organics is a great way to go. It gives you time, because when I got rid of the cows, I bought a life.
And you can't really put a price on that, can you?
No, you've only one shot. When you're lying in the ground there and there's cows walking up on top of you, you finally realise that there's nobody going to be at these cows are going to be at your funeral. Do you know what I mean? So you've got to get that wake-up call, and there's a lot of fellas out there that have themselves stressed to the last. They haven't time to brush their teeth. They haven't time to go to soccer matches. They haven't time to go on holidays. And they're working so hard, and they still can't go on holidays. Yeah. It is ridiculous. There's no need of it. I wouldn't mind if we were getting paid so much for the product we're producing, but we're blamed for everything, and we're not getting paid for it. So if we cut back, we actually had less of what we had. We create a scarcity, and then we get paid for it, because people are getting their food for nothing. That's why I sell my burger at $5. And people say, oh my God, that's awfully expensive. I go, you're comparing it to a burger that some fella's not getting paid along the way. And then you hear there now on the social media now that there's still horse meat going into burgers, and people don't even know it. And if you're buying an economy burger, by Christ, I'm telling you, you're buying an economy burger. You know what I mean? My meat is a 100%, there's nothing else, there's not even salt and pepper inside it. So you can pay €17 for a pizza, no problem, or you can pay €5 for my burger. And I guarantee you'll be a lot better off with my burger than that €17 pizza. That's what I think.
We're in, I guess, a traditional part of the farmyard here with cattle eating silage, but you were telling me earlier that you have plans, big plans. So will we go walk over this way a little bit, and you can tell me what's going to happen in the future? That's the old dairy parlour, but everything's going to get a bit of a shake up.
Oh yeah, I'm going to have to draft in some help there now. There's a few neighbours there now. They're kind of interested in what's going on. But it kind of sparked off there. I got an email from Fall to Ireland, I think, or some tourism. I forget now. Sometimes my mind I forgets. And a crowd from Canada that were rearing Wagyu in Canada wanted to call down to see this farm because they were watching this farmer selling Wagyu the way I was trying to sell it. And Jesus, I said, I have nothing prepared. I said, this place isn't fancy enough at all for it. I didn't even think the bus would come in. But I organised beer, my local butcher Tony O'Brien, to cook my Wagyu. Got my guitar tuned and my accordion, and it was pouring rain the same day. And they wanted to come down, so they left Blarney early because it was raining. They couldn't see Blarney Castle, and they came here at 2 o'clock. And we had a fine feed of Wagyu burgers. They walked around the yard here and they said, I can't do a Canadian accent, no, but they said it was like their yard. It was very natural. They had bits of projects half started and half finished, sheds half cleaned, half stuff, bits of metal thrown around the place, and there was a lot of engineers there. They were looking at the ration bins we had, the grabs that I had, the kind of tractors that we had, the connections for the tractors, the bits in how they're totally different machinery and the difference. They said, we could never see this anymore.
Really?
This is it. This is really a farm. That's it. This is more Irish. This is it. Bits and pieces of my life thrown around the yard. Yeah, and they stayed here from 1 o'clock. We went down the fields. We walked down there, and we tore into a session below here of burgers and some stout. I got off some. I rang up some crowd. They're Abbey Ale. I think they're a small Irish company. I rang them up because I wanted $3 lift. Do you know him? I wanted his beer, but they sent me down their bottles of stuff, and we had it below there, and they rocked on until 7 o'clock that evening. One fella could play the guitar, and they were heading for Hotel Europe, full to the gills with my meat, and they goes, we don't want to go back to the Hotel Europe. This is way more fun here. Below inside my back kitchen.
Yeah, they were on their way to a 5-star hotel, but they wanted to stay here.
They couldn't be bothered. No, they said, no, we're sick of hotels, blah, blah. And we have a vintage car below there, and there's one of the guys there, he was telling me he had a shed full of vintage cars, and now he's sick and he Parkinson's and he can't drive them. And he's saying, I'd love to be you know, that I can tinker away with this, and even though you've only got one, he goes, you can drive it. And I go, well, it's not going most of the time. But is the
upshot from this that you want to do more of that you're planning on doing stuff with the farm here?
Well, the parlour's there, the building is there. It just needs to be tidied up around it. I'm beside a quarry. I can get plenty of stone to tidy up the place. Fire out the milking parlour, throw a few tables and chairs around the place, and fix up the pathway going up along there. There's a lovely walk all the way up to the mountain from here. And it's just basically somewhere to go. It doesn't have to be absolutely fantastic. Do you know, people that come here, they can actually see a farm in progress. And if they call the next year, they say, well, this was great. We called up there last year and they're after doing this. Like you could go into debt and something here now and the whole thing would fall on its ass. And that's something I don't want to do. But I think I can get a food truck and I can get someone that's qualified to cook the chef, or not to cook the chef, that'd be terrible, but to cook the burgers itself and work it from there and try and get local produce in. And I might have somebody's baking inside there, something that's, call up. I might even have a coffee machine there that people might actually come up, because there's a lot of people that are they're living longer, they're retired, and they want somewhere to go. And some of them are sick of walking around the park, going around in circles. It's like training a horse. Jesus, the horse loves go for a gallop down the field. So if they had a place, come on, we'll go up now to Finno Farm, we'll have a cup of tea, we'll have Josie's buns, and sure, we'll get the supper and all above there, we'll get the burgers and we'll come on the way down. Yeah. Something, it doesn't have to be fantastic, just somewhere to go. Even if there's nobody here, they can come up here. So I'd have it in such a way like that, because there was always life in this farm. There was always something. My mother did a load of French students. She was always up to something. She kept the horses for the horse show. Oh, we were all into cars. There was always a car being opened up here. There was always something. There was motorbikes up here. There was clay pigeon shooting. You name it. The guards were reported that there was noise above in Sheahan's all the time, and the guard said, "It's all right. Where are you, Clehula? Is that the Sheahan's? Here." That noise only comes for 1 or 2 days and it'll be gone away again. Because everything is a novelty when you get it.
Yeah.
You know, so it's gone quiet now again. But I'd like to show fellas that they don't realise what they have until it's nearly gone. And Jesus, everybody's got a massive place only just to open up their eyes beyond the slavery, because it's not easy. Farming's not easy. I spent 25 years inside that milking parlour, and now I can catch up in 25 years of talking to myself.
Well, you've been very good. I've enjoyed talking to you anyway. Yeah, it's been lovely. But we're going to wrap up. Do you have anything else that you want to add? Do you want to give a shout out to, do you have a website or a social media or anything like that people can follow you?
Just put in Finno Farm. I try to do as much as I can. I'm not educated by no means, but I be pressing the buttons that takes me to somewhere else, and I learn what I can get every time I press the button. Just check out Finno Farm, send a message, go online and try a box of Wagyu burgers. There's 2 choices there now at the moment, and there's a steak box there. You don't have to have Wagyu all the time, just for special occasions or 50th birthdays or something like that. A lot of fellas buy steak now for poker parties, like, you know, the wife's gone away for the weekend. They said, we're going to go on the whiskey and the poker, and we're going to try some Wagyu steaks. And there's every kind. I've got a lot of funny stories. I met a lot of great people. They're very positive towards wanting to know where their food comes from. And there's a great opening there, and local supermarkets should make it a big thing. I don't know, there's my Super Value blow here now do it, but the food is coming from all over the world. Even though there's a shortage of potatoes, there's potatoes coming from all over the world. It's unbelievable what's out there. When you start in the food industry, to see the amount of meat and food that's moved every day is frightening. So, but if you could keep it local, my neighbour now does Dexter, Brave Herders, and LaRousse are looking after that. They're doing a total different thing to me. They sell the on animal to LaRousse, and LaRousse finds the customer. But I want it all from me.
Well, this is your podcast, so obviously we'll end there. We'll end there. Good plug. Well done. For everyone listening, you've been listening to Organic Matters, the podcast brought to you by the Irish Organic Association, and this is the last in our series of podcasts for this year. So thank you very much for tuning in, and we hope you have a lovely Christmas and New Year. And if you're bored over Christmas, there's a huge archive of material there if you need anything to listen to or get any inspiration from farmers like Conor as well. There's plenty there. For all of those, you can go to www.irishorganicassociation.ie. But I've been Hannah Cunningham. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll be back again next year, maybe with some Wagyu. What do you think, Conor?
Yeah.